The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in their seats, their eyes fixed on the lone human standing in the center. The chamber, once a symbol of peace and unity, now felt like a battlefield. Ambassador Daniel Carter adjusted his suit, his face calm but his eyes burning with restrained anger. He had attended countless meetings in this room, but this one would be the last. At the head of the chamber, Supreme Chancellor Selvar, a tall insectoid being with shimmering green eyes, tapped his clawed fingers on the desk. "Ambassador Carter," he said, his voice smooth but firm. "The Council has reviewed your latest request for military independence. As before, the answer is no. Humanity must remain under Council command." A murmur spread through the chamber. Some species nodded in agreement, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew what was coming. Daniel exhaled slowly. "With all due respect, Chancellor," he said, his voice steady, "Earth is not asking for permission. We are telling you that we are leaving the Council." Silence. Then, chaos. Delegates shouted over one another. Some called for reason, others for punishment. A reptilian warlord slammed his fist on the table. "This is treason. Humanity has benefited from this council for centuries." Daniel's expression hardened. "Benefit?" He let out a bitter laugh. "We were your soldiers, your workers, your enforcers. When war came, you sent our fleets to die. When trade collapsed, you took from our resources while Earth starved. And now, when we ask for the right to defend ourselves, you deny us." Selvar leaned forward. "You agreed to our laws. You accepted our rule." "We did," Daniel admitted, "because we believed in unity, in peace. But peace does not mean slavery." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every delegate. "You fear us. That's why you hold us back." A feline ambassador, her fur bristling, scoffed. "Fear? You humans think too highly of yourselves. You are strong, yes, but without the Council, you are nothing." Daniel smiled coldly. "Then you won't miss us." Selvar's mandibles twitched. "If you leave, humanity will no longer have trade rights, military alliances, or protection from external threats." Daniel's expression did not change. "We fought alone before. We'll do it again." The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand what you are doing. If you walk away, you will make enemies, enemies you cannot defeat." Daniel stepped forward, his voice quiet but unshaken. "Then let them come." For the first time, Selvar hesitated. He had seen the reports. He knew what humanity was capable of. They had survived wars that would have destroyed other species. They had adapted, evolved, and become something terrifying. If the Council pushed them too far, the Chancellor sighed. "Very well. The Council accepts humanity's withdrawal." Daniel gave a single nod. "Then this meeting is over." He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the silent hall. As the massive doors shut behind him, the Council chamber erupted in panic. Humanity was gone, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news of humanity's departure spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Some species saw it as a relief, one less aggressive force to worry about. Others, however, understood the deeper consequences. Humanity had been the backbone of the Galactic Council's military, economy, and technological advancements. Without them, everything was about to change. On Earth, celebrations erupted. People flooded the streets, waving banners and chanting victory songs. For the first time in centuries, humanity was free from alien rule. No more forced treaties, no more Council-imposed restrictions. They could finally defend themselves, expand their colonies, and forge their own destiny. But not everyone was celebrating. On the Council's capital world, Supreme Chancellor Selvar sat in his chamber, staring at the reports piling up before him. Trade routes were already collapsing, pirate attacks were increasing, and several member species had begun questioning the Council's authority. It had only been a week, and yet the cracks were already showing. Meanwhile, In the dark corners of the galaxy, warlords and crime syndicates saw an opportunity. With humanity gone, there was no one left to enforce order. Smugglers moved freely, slavers resumed their trade, and mercenary groups offered their services to the highest bidder. The Council, once a beacon of unity, was beginning to unravel. In a distant system, an alien fleet assembled. The Draconar, a war-hungry species that had always feared humanity's strength, now saw their chance. Their leader, High Warlord Korak, grinned as he studied the holographic map of Earth. No more humans to hold us back. He growled to his commanders. No more threats. The Council is weak, and soon the galaxy will belong to us. What they failed to realize, however, was that humanity had not abandoned the galaxy. They were watching. They were preparing. And when the time came, they would strike back with a fury the universe had never seen before. The first real signs of chaos appeared within a month of humanity's departure. Without Earth's powerful fleets patrolling the trade routes, piracy surged to an all-time high. Entire cargo ships vanished without a trace, their crews either killed or sold into slavery. Once safe colonies found themselves under siege, calling for help that never came. The Council, already stretched thin, struggled to respond. On the Council's capital world, Supreme Chancellor Selvar called for an emergency meeting. The delegates arrived, their voices filled with panic. The once mighty Council looked weak, divided, and unsure of how to maintain order. The reptilian ambassador from the Voric Consortium slammed his fist on the table. This is madness. The humans left, and now the galaxy is tearing itself apart. A feline delegate hissed in frustration. We must bring them back. We need their fleets, their soldiers. Zelvar cut her off with a sharp wave of his hand. Humanity made their choice. They will not return. His voice was firm, but deep inside, he knew the truth. The Council had grown complacent, relying on humanity for too long. Now, without them, everything was unraveling. Meanwhile, in a hidden military base on Mars, Admiral Ethan Graves watched the chaos unfold through intercepted transmissions. He had expected the Council to struggle, but even he was surprised by how quickly their control was collapsing. A smirk crossed his face. They thought they didn't need us, he muttered to his officers. Let's see how long they last without us. Across the galaxy, warlords and rogue factions grew bolder. The Draconar fleet began its march toward Council space, preparing to strike at its most vulnerable worlds. Their leader, High Warlord Korak, sneered at the weak alien rulers. The humans were the only ones holding us back, he growled. Now, we take what is ours. But what no one realized was that humanity was not just watching. They were waiting. Earth's leaders had seen this coming and had been preparing for months. The Council had abandoned them, underestimated them. Now, humanity had the chance to shape the future on their own terms, and when the time came, they would return, not as servants of the Council, but as rulers of the stars. The Galactic Council was crumbling faster than anyone had predicted. Within 2 months of humanity's departure, several outer colonies had fallen to pirate warlords, their desperate distress signals going unanswered. Merchant fleets refused to travel without military escorts, causing a trade collapse that rippled across the core worlds. Essential resources dwindled. Civil unrest spread. The once mighty Council was paralyzed, its leaders unable to agree on a solution. On the Council's capital world, Supreme Chancellor Selvar held yet another emergency meeting. The air was thick with tension as the delegates argued. The Vorak ambassador snarled, slamming his clawed hand on the table. We are weak. The humans kept order, and now we are drowning in chaos. An avian representative from the Zephyr Republics screeched in frustration. We must send an envoy. Beg them to return. Offer them whatever they want. Zelvar's mandibles clicked in irritation. Humanity will not return, he growled. They have made their position clear. But his words carried no conviction. Even he was beginning to wonder if they had made a mistake. Meanwhile, deep in uncharted space, Admiral Ethan Graves stood aboard the UNS Dauntless, a massive battlecruiser hidden within Earth's growing fleet. He listened to intercepted Council transmissions, hearing their desperation, their fear. It was exactly what he had expected. "They're panicking," Graves muttered, arms crossed. "Fools thought they could push us around forever." A young officer beside him grinned. "Do we step in, sir?" Graves shook his head. "Not yet. Let them feel the weight of their own failure. When we return, it won't be as their enforcers. It will be on our terms." Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Draknar war machine was on the move. High Warlord Korek's fleet had already conquered 2 former Council worlds, and now they set their sights on the inner systems. The Council was weak, divided, and ripe for the taking. Korek stood before his war council, his eyes burning with ambition. "The humans are gone. No one is left to stop us. We strike at the heart of the Council, and when it falls, the galaxy belongs to us." The galaxy trembled on the edge of destruction. The Council was powerless. The warlords were rising, and in the shadows, humanity watched and waited. Soon, the time would come to act. And when it did, the universe would never be the same again. The first major Council world fell within 3 months of humanity's departure. The Draconar fleet descended upon the industrial hub of Psychos Prime, crushing its defenses in mere hours. The planetary governor sent desperate pleas for help, but the Council's response was slow, ineffective. By the time their forces arrived, the Draconar had already raised their banners over the ruins of the capital city. Across the galaxy, similar stories unfolded. Criminal syndicates took over trade hubs. Former allies turned on each other. The Council's fleets, once reinforced by human warships, were now stretched too thin. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council faced the real possibility of collapse. In the Council chambers, Supreme Chancellor Xelvar stood before his fellow delegates, his face grim. "We are losing," he admitted, his voice heavy with the weight of failure. "The balance of power has shifted. If we do not act now, we will fall." The Vorak ambassador bared his sharp teeth. "Then we must call upon the humans, swallow our pride, offer them whatever they demand." Xelvar's mandibles twitched in frustration. "You think they will listen? After we forced them out, after we mocked their warnings." The avian Zephyr representative ruffled his feathers anxiously. "Then we are doomed." But unknown to the Council, humanity had already made its decision. On the bridge of the UNS Dauntless, Admiral Ethan Graves watched the chaos unfold through intercepted transmissions. Earth's leaders had debated for weeks, but the answer had been obvious from the start. The galaxy needed humanity. And this time, they would not play by the Council's rules. Graves turned to his officers, his voice steady. "Send the order. Phase 1 begins now." Across the Sol system, Earth's hidden armada came to life. Hundreds of warships, long kept in reserve, powered up their weapons. Stealth fleets moved into position. Advanced AI systems calculated strike patterns. Humanity had waited long enough. The Council thought they had abandoned the galaxy. The warlords believed they were untouchable, but they had all made the same mistake. They underestimated humanity. And now, the reckoning was about to begin. The Galactic Council was on the verge of collapse. More worlds had fallen to the Draconar, and the Vorak warlords now raided deep into the inner systems. Trade routes were lawless, entire colonies abandoned, and the once mighty Council fleets were in full retreat. The end seemed inevitable. Then, without warning, everything changed. It started with the Draconar fleet at Tarsus IV. Their warships, battle-scared and overconfident, were celebrating another victory when their sensors detected something impossible. Hundreds of ships emerging from subspace. The UNS Dauntless led the charge, flanked by 3 Titan-class dreadnoughts and a wave of advanced strike craft. The Draconar barely had time to react before humanity unleashed its fury. In minutes, the enemy fleet was in chaos. Human railguns shredded their cruisers. EMP pulses disabled their shields. Swarms of AI-controlled drones overwhelmed their defenses. The Drakkar had expected the humans to return as the Council's enforcers, weak and desperate. They had not expected a precision strike from a military force, unlike anything they had ever seen. On the surface of Tarsus IV, Drakkar warlord Korak watched in horror as his invasion force was annihilated from orbit. His lieutenants growled in frustration. "We must retreat. The humans, they should be weak." Korak roared. "They abandoned the Council. They should not have this power." But they did, and they weren't just fighting to restore the Council. They were fighting to reshape the galaxy. News spread faster than light. One by one, warlords realized that the humans were back, and they were not here to negotiate. Vorak fleets scattered at the first sight of human warships. Pirate strongholds that had flourished in the power vacuum were obliterated overnight. Even Council forces were stunned by the precision and brutality of humanity's campaign. In the Council chambers, Supreme Chancellor Excelvar listened to the reports in stunned silence. He had expected an envoy, a plea for peace talks. Instead, humanity had waged a war of reclamation with terrifying efficiency. A Vorak ambassador shook his head in disbelief. They are stronger than before." Zelvar exhaled slowly. "No," he corrected. "They were always this strong. We were just too blind to see it." Humanity had returned, but not as the Council's enforcers. They were something else now, something the galaxy had never seen before. And for the first time in history, the universe belonged to them. The war was over before it had truly begun. In less than 6 months, humanity had undone the chaos that had gripped the galaxy since their departure. Warlords who had once terrorized entire star systems were either crushed, exiled, or forced into hiding. The Drakkar fleets were shattered, their leaders executed or imprisoned. Pirate strongholds burned, and trade routes were secured once more. But as the dust settled, a new question arose. What would humanity do next? In the Council chambers, Supreme Chancellor Excelvar and the remaining delegates gathered for an emergency summit. The atmosphere was tense. Every representative knew that the Council no longer held true power. That power now rested with humanity. The doors opened, and Admiral Ethan Graves entered. He was alone, unarmed, yet he carried more authority than the entire chamber combined. The Council members stiffened as he stepped onto the central platform, his expression unreadable. Zelvar cleared his throat. "Admiral Graves, we acknowledge humanity's strength. We recognize that without your intervention, the Council would have collapsed. Therefore, we humbly request that humanity return to its rightful place among us." A long silence followed. Then, Graves shook his head. "No." Murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. The Zephyr representative clicked his beak nervously. You refuse." Graves' eyes were cold. "We refuse to be part of a broken system. The Council fell apart the moment we left. It was never strong. It only survived because of us." He stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "But we will not repeat our mistakes. The era of the Galactic Council is over." Gasps filled the room. Zelvar's mandibles twitched in panic. "You mean to rule us?" Graves smirked. "No, we don't need to." He turned, gesturing to a massive holo-display behind him. The star map of the known galaxy flickered, and for the first time, a new political structure emerged. The Terran Alliance. Not a council, not a democracy of squabbling species. It was a coalition, led by humanity, built on order, strength, and unity. The weak would no longer dictate galactic policy. The chaos of the past would not be repeated. Graves faced them once more. "You have two choices. Join us willingly, or fade into irrelevance. The galaxy will no longer be ruled by cowards and bureaucrats. It will be guided by those with the strength to shape the future." One by one, the representatives bowed their heads in silent understanding. The decision was not theirs to make. It had already been made. Humanity had abandoned the Galactic Council, and in doing so, they had become something greater.